Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Ilias. I work here at Flourish, and joining me today is my colleague Luisa, who can answer any questions that you might have through chat. Today's session will be introducing our new template, the word cloud template, and showing you its different functionalities, introducing it, and showing also some more advanced capabilities that this new template has. All right, let's get started. Today's agenda will be having 4 main sections. We will learn what is a word cloud and a bit about its history and how it came to be. It's quite interesting, actually. We will create our own word cloud by adding our textual data and see how can we exclude words that we make with that we don't want them to appear on our word cloud. Then we will be learning about how to style and animate our word cloud, and then we will learn a different alternative way of creating and adding data to a word cloud and building a visual story in order to bring to life the inner workings of our texts. So let's get started immediately and be introduced to word clouds. Word clouds started all the way back in 1976 when the social psychologist Stanley Milgram of the famous Milgram experiment actually asked people to name Paris landmarks, and the landmarks that got the most mentions and the more responses essentially were plotted on a map, and the bigger the font that a landmark has, it means that it got more mentions by the participants. As we can see here, we have the sign, the Eiffel Tower, and whatnot. The word cloud was living in the margins of the academic world until the beginnings of the 2000s, when the image hosting website Flickr featured a word cloud of user search terms on its homepage, and after that their popularity exploded. You could see word clouds everywhere in Web 2.0. They became so popular even that during a design award ceremony that Flickr was one of the awardees, one of its founders actually said, "I'm sorry about the word clouds," because they were everywhere. It would be a good time as well now to define what word clouds are, because they have been known by alternative names as well, such as tag clouds or keyword clouds. Word clouds are a visual representation of the frequency of words appearing in a piece of textual data, in general, a text. So let's make our own. Let's head over to our template chooser. In today's first word cloud, because we will be making 2 of them. In the first one, we will be using Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s iconic "I Have a Dream" speech for our word cloud. So let's open our source. Here we have the speech that took place in 1963 in Washington, DC. And this will happen simple enough and without pain by just copying all this big piece of text here. Let's get over to our template chooser, scroll down until we find our word cloud template. It's hot off the press. Open the simple word cloud starting point. Make our visualization use all of the available screen widths and also name our word cloud. Case speech, right? One more either. In this template, we have two options for adding our data. And in this case, we will be pasting them in. As we can see, I'm sorry, got the zoom menu appearing right above my like tabs. All right. This would be a bit less annoying. So as we can see here, in the words settings, we have two different options regarding importing our text. We can either use the dataset and head over here, or just paste in our whole text. We are deleting our default example, which is William Shakespeare's sonnets, and paste our text. As we can see, immediately our word cloud was updated. A common ask after that, and the common task would be to exclude common words, as in English and in all languages there are some words such as articles that appear quite often, so they would throw every word cloud off. In this case, as we can see, it's I, so we make a bit of room and we add I in the list to be excluded. And as we can see, there's so much space that we saved here. And here we can witness what words were the most commonly mentioned in MLK's speech in 1963. All right, this is not the time for that now. Let me start presenting again. Now that we have added our data, we have, as I mentioned, removed our most common words. Flourish already provides a list of commonly encountered words in English, but you can also add your own, just the same way as we did before by adding I on the list of words to be excluded. Now that we have created our word cloud and we have a basic word cloud visualization in the back, we should style and animate it and bring it to life and make it more visually appealing. Flourish offers a host of styling options, such as you can customize the space between the words, the angles, the font sizes, the scale that it's used in order to calculate the differences of font sizes. And also there are different options about animating your word cloud. So let's move along and see how this works in action. if we close our words settings and move on to our cloud style, we can see that we have a setting for spacing that defines how much space there should be between our words. Let's give it a bit of breathing space. And we also have a setting called layout number that defines different layout options regarding how our words should be allocated in this cloud. Let's hit in action and how it works. These are calculated mathematically, so there are quite a lot of options, more than 10. Let's stick with 4 now. And decrease a bit the space between the words. The next crucial styling option that we should mention is word angles. We can set the minimum and the maximum angles of your words, and also how many segments should be plotted in this range of angles. It may sound a bit confusing, but once you see it in action, it should be clear enough. As we can see, we have a minimum angle of minus 90 degrees and a maximum angle here. And the number of angles is how many variations we can have in this range. Let's see, if we decrease it, we will, and keep decreasing it, we will progressively get less and less angles. So if we opt for just one angle, there's only one angle that's plotted, and everything is essentially on the same angle. Let's stick with 4 for now as well, as it offers a bit of variation. Let's move to our next styling option, which is fonts. This setting defines how small the most infrequent words should be and how big the more frequent words should be as well. Let's increase the maximum size to 20 in order to have a bit more variation as well. And our next option would be scaling. The scales generally determine the relationship in size between the biggest and the smallest of words. And we have 3 options on our word cloud template. We have a linear scale, we have a squared scale. The differences between them are described in the help doc that we have on the resources section at the end of our webinar, and a logarithmic scale, which makes everything a bit more streamlined. In this case, we will be sticking with squared, as it secures quite accurate and visually appealing result. And also the next visual styling option, and the last one, would be animation. Word clouds are animated on load. So when you open up the page, or when you scroll down to the section of the page that the word cloud lies, you can set different animation action to happen. You can opt between fade and grow. while the default option chooses for you according to how many words are being displayed. As we can see here in this small explanation, if there are fewer than 100 words, by default, the grow animation will be used. And if there are more than 100 words visible, the fade one will be, we will opt for the fade one instead. Also, you can set different duration and different time for the stagger of how long the first and the last word animations last. Let's opt for fade, set duration to 3 and keep stagger at 1. And if we refresh, we can see that it takes a bit more time to animate our word cloud. And let's opt for grow as well. We will stick with grow. And this brings us to something that I'm afraid I forgot to mention, but it's quite important. In our words settings, we have the word limit setting. Through it, we can define how many words we want to be displayed on our word cloud. So let's opt for 100 words in order to make this animation a bit more easy to read, to make this word cloud, I mean, a bit easier to read. If we preview this on full screen, we can see that we now have a word cloud of the famous I Have a Dream speech by the late Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. So now that we have created our word cloud, our first basic word cloud, it would be good to create one more and show you how you can essentially make use both of the word cloud template and the Flourish story feature in order to create a visual comparison of how framing of political speeches works, and essentially visualize a topic that sometimes can be a bit dry. So in this session, we will be creating a second word cloud and adding this to a story and walking you through alternative ways of adding our data and also categorizing our words. For our second word cloud, we will be using George Wallace's inaugural address as governor of Alabama. George Wallace was a governor of Alabama and also a presidential hopeful with the party with the Democratic Party, although he didn't get the nomination. However, his speeches have gone down in history, and especially this one in defense of segregation, with the famous line, "Segregation now, segregation forever." A bit of historical context here. So let's grab our speech. It is in a PDF. It was a bit hard to come by. We have already put this on a spreadsheet, not on a spreadsheet. We have already transferred it to a document. And this time we will not be just pasting in our text. We will be creating a spreadsheet of the most common words in order to create categories out of them. And you will see what I mean. We will be essentially using the other way to import text into our word cloud. We are copying our text. In order to create our spreadsheet, we will be using the website Write Words, which calculate the frequency of words in a text. We will be pasting our text here. And as we can see, we have now counted how frequently different words appear in this address. Also, we have our textual data and our frequency data. However, we need to create a spreadsheet out of that, and for this we will be using Google Slides, Google Sheets. I'm sorry, can get all these different Google services right, it seems. We will be pasting the data in. However, due to its original format, we can see that our spreadsheet has all of its data in one column, which is not optimal. We need one column with words and another column with numbers standing for how frequently these words are appearing. So we are marking our column. We head over to data, opt for split to columns, and set that space should be used in order to split our column into two. We'll be adding one row above, and this column should be called frequency. And these words, naming and saving and exporting our spreadsheet as CSV. All right, now we have our spreadsheet of word frequency already. So let's create a new visualization, a new word cloud. As we can see, a new blueprint is now open. At this time, as I mentioned, we will use an alternative way of adding our data. And also we will be excluding common words that throw off our visualization. So we head over to our dataset, opt for uploading data. Our data are now live on our dataset. We head over back to our word setting and switch to data see it. The way that everything, the reason that everything disappeared is useful because we are taking data from PDF. Usually these sources can be a bit dirty and have like stray strings or stray textual information in them, like page numbers or not academic notation. In this case, is marking of the speech time, this 5 minutes mark. So we will be removing it. And as we can see, we will be binding column B to words, and the frequency is our column A. So now we have our brand new word cloud. It's a good idea to name it as well. Because we will compare, the reason we do that is to compare it with the other visualization that we have already created. It would be a good idea to keep styling the same as with our previous word cloud. And the way that this is colored now is because we have bounded a category column. By using categories, you can use the color features of Flourish and color different words or word segments according to a specific color. In this case, we will be removing it and opting for 100 words. Keeping the layout consistent and increasing our font size, our maximum font size, as well as our animation time. The reason we did that is because, as we can see in both visualizations and in both clouds, freedom features prominently in both those speeches, despite their everything about them and their wider context being radically different. As we can see, it's one of the most common words in both those speeches. This leads us to creating a story that we can visualize this piece of information of how freedom can be framed by radically different contexts. We will be adding our two word clouds into a story, and in order to do that, it would be a good idea to adding headers to our visualizations. And the same for George Wallace speech. since we plan to create a visual story, and since we used the data sheet in order to add our words and their frequency, we can essentially stress and emphasize the word freedom in our second visualization. So let's search for freedom. It's here, quite high up. Add a column on the right that will be featuring as a category, and add the word freedom. This is just a placeholder in order to be able, for the data binding to be able to pick up the category. As we see now that we have categories binded, we got color options, and by using color overrides, we will be coloring our word, the word freedom, red. So let's create our visual story of comparison between how freedom is framed in the two very different speeches. First one, the Martin Luther King speech, and then George Wallace speech. Increase and make our story full screen, and also add a bit of explanation. Apologies for the slight radio silence, but it would be good to add a bit of information in our visual story. As we can see in our first word cloud of MLK's I Have a Dream speech, we get the word freedom framed by words such as colored, dream, America, faith, and black, justice as well, while in George Wallace's speech, freedom is framed by terms such as government, state, again, faith, men, Washington, Alabama, and Southerners as well. I hope you enjoyed this small demonstration of how using word clouds you can bring to life differences between texts and make a bit richer topics that usually isn't something that you think that they are very probable that could be visualized in any way. Sorry for overrunning a bit. I'll briefly run through resources. You can find more information about word clouds in our blog, where we introduce their various way more capabilities, such as adding background images, and also the help docs is always a good place to seek more information about template as well. I want to again remind you, if you have any questions, reach out to hello@flourish.studio. We will be more than happy to help you with anything or generally take your feedback. And I want to sincerely thank you for attending today's session. I hope you found it useful, and I'm wishing you a great rest of your day or night, depending on your time zone. Thank you very much.